Come on. Close like Starsky and Hutch, stick the clutch. I squeeze 3 at your cherry M3. Bang.
What's up, guys? It's Benny. How deep does the rot go inside of the swamp? Way down to the actual bedrock, permafrost, primordial ooze. Here it is, ladies and gentlemen. Federal judge dismisses indictments against James Comey and Letitia James. Wow, I thought they were just indicted. Like, what the hell's going on here? Was there already a trial? Nope. Judge just like, nah, not even going to hear it. It's done. It's over. You got your indictments, but I don't like them, so it's done here. How rigged is the system? Federal judge dismisses James Comey, Letitia James indictment. How could that be? Judge Cameron Curie found that Lindsay Halligan could not charge James Comey because she was an invalid U.S. attorney. What the hell's going on here? Seems like quite the oversight, but let's read. A federal judge threw out the indictments, James Comey and Letitia James, finding that they were illegitimate because it was brought by an unqualified U.S. attorney. Huh? James Cameron Curie dismissed the false statements charges against Comey and bank fraud charges against James without prejudice, meaning the charge could be brought again. I conclude that the Attorney General's attempts to install Ms. Halligan as an interim U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia was invalid, that Ms. Halligan has been unlawfully serving in that role since 2025 of September 22. What? The Department of Justice could appeal the decision or attempt to bring the charges under a different U.S. attorney. Fox News Digital has reached out for comment to the DOJ. The move to scrap 2 of the highest profile criminal cases the DOJ leveled against President Trump's political foes comes after a judge voiced skepticism at a recent hearing in Virginia about Lindsay Halligan's ability to bring the charges. Curie, a Clinton appointee based in South Carolina, was brought in from out of state to preside over the proceedings about the question of Halligan's authority because it presented a conflict for the Virginia judges. Comey and James's challenges to Halligan's appointment were consolidated because of their similarities. Halligan acted alone in representing the charges to the grand jury after Trump ousted the prior interim U.S. attorney and replaced him with Halligan. At the time, Trump urged Pam Bondi on social media to act quickly to indict Comey, a call that came as statute of limitations were about to lapse. Halligan had no prior prosecutorial experience when she took over one of the most high-profile federal districts in the country, was a lone lawyer to present both cases to the grand jury and sign the indictment. No prosecutors from Virginia joined the case. Okay. I mean, I don't pretend to be a legal expert here, but I mean, did nobody think of this? Like, really? Nobody was like, I'm not saying that this is the correct decision, but like, is it true that they didn't follow a process here? How is she illegal exactly? The DOJ has since put forth its full backing behind Halligan. Bondi attempted to ratify and re-ratify the indictments after the case, a move that Curie suggested would not have been necessary if Halligan were a valid appointee. DOJ attorney Henry Whitaker argued during the hearing that the motions to dismiss Comey and James's case involved at best a paperwork error. James's attorney Abe Lowell said Halligan was a private person when she entered the grand jury rooms and completely unauthorized to be in them. Curie agreed, saying the decision was retroactively validating Halligan. Her actions would be unheard of. The implications of the contrary exclusion, the extraordinary, it would mean the government could send any private citizen off the street, attorney or not, into a grand jury room to secure an indictment, so long as the attorney general gives her approval. That cannot be the law. Again, here, so here it is in black and white. You can go see it here. Comey case dismissed. Mr. Comey moves to dismiss the indictment on the grounds that Halligan, sole prosecutor who presented the case to the grand jury, was unlawfully appointed in violation of this U.S. Code of the Appointments Clause. As I explained below, I agree with Mr. Comey that the Attorney General's attempt to install Ms. Halligan as an interim attorney in Eastern Virginia was invalid, and because Ms. Halligan had no lawful authority to present the indictment, I will grant Mr. Comey's request to throw it all out. Jeez. Okay, so here we go. Let's jump over here to Mike Davis, who has obviously going to be sharp commentary on this. countervailing commentary. There's overwhelming evidence that James Comey lied to Congress and obstructed the Senate investigation into Crossfire Hurricane, the biggest scandal in American history. There's overwhelming evidence that AG Tisch lied on her mortgage application and committed bank fraud. The prior U.S. attorney refused to prosecute these Democratic operatives, so the attorney general picked a new one who was unafraid to follow the law. What's the Democrats' response? Unsurprisingly, an Obama judge hand-selected a Clinton judge. Then the Clinton judge tossed both indictments. And the first sentence in both nearly identical orders in which the Clinton judge personally and gratuitously attacked Lindsey Halligan makes it crystal clear this judge is a Democrat partisan. Democrat politicians, including in robes, shamefully protect their own. Unfortunately, we have a two-tiered justice system, one of Democrat weaponizing enemies, one Democrat weaponizing to protect the allies. The Justice Department must appeal, and it must move aggressively to bring the charges against the lawfare Democrats in Fort Pierce, Florida. Okay. So Mike Davis is effectively saying that this is just, political bias, but it still means that these cases have been thrown out. What's next on all of this? Well, not exactly sure. Let's read. Judge tosses the case. Decision disqualifying Lindsey Halligan as U.S. attorney sets back the Trump efforts, Justice Department to go after the rivals who broke the law. They did break the law. This, by the way, is the judge. Ooh, goodness gracious. Okay. Yikes. Woof. Buzz. Your girlfriend. Former FBI. So this is the judge that threw him out. This is Judge Cameron Curie, Bill Clinton appointee. She tossed the case. It's exactly what you'd think. I'm kind of getting pissed off at this kind of stuff. Like, have the trial. It is amazing. But really, like, there's so many smart people at DOJ. Like, is this for real? Senate Republicans refusing to toss out the blue slip tradition allowed James Comey and Letitia James indictments to be thrown out by a liberal judge. Let's read. Chuck Grassley refused to get rid of it, so Democrat Senators Warren and Kaine could unilaterally block the confirmation of Lindsey Halligan. And it hasn't moved forward. So the judge had the ammo to claim Halligan isn't legally in her position and threw it out. Now we're in this mess. Get strong, Senate GOP. The blue slip tradition allows home state senators to have input on U.S. attorney and district court judges. In Biden administration, Republican kept 30 liberals off the bench that President Trump can now fill with conservatives. So I'm just kidding. Without prejudice, says Harmy Dillon, meaning they could bring it again. I guess we'll see. And Letitia James saying she's heartened by today's victory and grateful for the prayers. I mean, probably nobody has worse heart health in the world than Letitia James. From a medical perspective, here we go. What does Jonathan Turley have to say about this? What are the different scenarios? Let's go ahead and have a listen to the obvious legal experts here as Republicans in Congress continue to punch themselves directly in the nuts. Here you go.
What do you believe is, what are we watching for next in all of this, Jonathan?
Well, we're going to wait to see, I think, and we're going to have the answer very soon, whether the Department of Justice is going to go back to the grand jury and try to sort of clean this one up. The key is going to be the status of the U.S. attorney. And that's going to be an issue which they're going to have to address. The court here is saying you simply didn't have this authority. Now, the Justice Department has some good faith arguments that the reading of that law is wrong and that it impedes upon the president's authority. But I think a lot of judges would have raised the same concern. The general view has been that you sort of get one bite at the apple. You've got 120 days.
So we just got this statement in from Letitia James, who said, "I'm heartened by today's victory and grateful for the prayers and support I've received from around the country. I remain fearless in the face of these baseless charges as I continue fighting for New Yorkers every single day." Well, I'm not sure if that will stand if the DOJ finds a way to cure these charges and or the situation and refile the charges. But what would they need to do, Professor, to cure this problem?
Well, first of all, Letitia James might be celebrating a tad too early. The problems here are not with the charges themselves, but essentially with the cop, or in this case, the prosecutor. So the court is not saying that she was innocent of these charges. The court is simply saying that the person who signed off on the charges didn't have authority to do that. So the obvious thing here is to get someone who is lawfully in a position to perform this role. Usually after 120 days, the district court appoints someone as the replacement. They're going to have to work this one out. They're in it's rather uncharted territory here to make sure that the next person who signs is going to be beyond these types of questions. They could also appeal. You know, they're already past the original date, but the argument is that they do have a right to go back to the grand jury. So they may just appeal and say, look, we think we have a good argument here that, yes, there's that 120 days, but we have some rather novel sort of shifts that occurred here that we believe, do not trigger that final date, and that we had the ability to use Halligan in the way we did.
Jonathan, we're just getting a statement from the DOJ, which says it is reviewing options now. And we're also being told that the DOJ literally found out when we did, and they are now going over all the different scenarios. Your reaction to that?
Well, it's fitting because everything about this indictment seems to be rather rushed and improvisational. You know, when the Comey indictment came down, I noted that it seemed sort of disjunctive. I mean, what had happened is they took out this count, and the other two counts didn't exactly fit neatly together. And you got a sense of how quickly they had to get this through. And that, I think, sat badly with this judge. You know, we're talking about criminal prosecutions. Judges really require great specificity and adherence to these procedures. And so I think that the Trump administration may have some, heavy lifting to do if they take this on appeal. But an appeal is an option, and they can seek review as to whether this rule has been too narrowly construed.
Yeah. So let's just go back over the timeline of it. So Eric Siebert was the interim U.S. attorney. He served for 120 days. Then it's my understanding that he was appointed by the court after that, but because he didn't want to follow through with this prosecution, he was removed from his position. And then how did Lindsay Halligan get in there, and why was her appointment illegal, according to the judge?
Well, she was then brought in and given effectively the same status, according to the court, that her predecessor had. And the court is saying you can't do that. You can't daisy chain these acting U.S. attorneys for 120 days each, because that could go on forever. It would gut the purpose of this rule. Now, the other criticisms of Halligan are really not that relevant. You know, the criticisms about how much experience she has in criminal prosecutions, that's really not relevant at all.
Okay, Jonathan Turley on this breaking news for us. We are going to have more and hopefully reaction from the White House here shortly. We'll bring that to our viewers as we get it. Jonathan, thank you.
Professor.